The small gray courtroom felt colder than usual that morning, as though the building itself sensed the storm gathering inside its walls. Rain lashed against the high windows, casting streaks of blurred light across the polished floor. People shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, murmuring low among themselves, casting glances toward the front of the room. At the defendant's table sat Sergeant Michael Turner, a 39-year-old veteran of 2 tours in Afghanistan. His once athletic frame was thinner now, his skin pale. A thick, worn leather brace wrapped around his left leg, and a set of crutches leaned against his seat. His face, lined with the kind of pain that ran deeper than physical wounds, remained composed. He wore his old service dress, faded but meticulously kept, as a silent reminder of who he was and who he had once been. Michael wasn't facing charges for violence or theft or fraud. He was here because he had missed 2 mandatory court dates related to overdue parking fines, a result of his inability to navigate the city's confusing and poorly accessible transit system after his injury. Bureaucracy didn't care about his limp. The judge had made that much clear already. Presiding over the case was Judge Clarissa Bell, a woman known for her strict interpretation of the law and her ruthless disdain for excuses. To her, a missed court date was a missed court date regardless of circumstance. The opposing counsel, a smirking assistant city attorney named Trent Holloway, barely glanced at Michael as he shuffled his papers. To him, this was an open and shut case. The courtroom clerk called the room to order, and Judge Bell entered briskly, her robe flowing behind her like a dark cloud. She took her seat at the bench and immediately called the case. "Sergeant Michael Turner," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "You stand accused of contempt of court for failure to appear. How do you plead?" Michael rose with difficulty, one hand clutching his crutch. "Not guilty, Your Honor," he said, his voice steady but strained. The judge frowned, flipping through the thin case file. "Your excuses are noted in the record. However, contempt is contempt. You were given orders. You chose not to comply." Michael opened his mouth to respond, but the judge held up a hand sharply. "We will move directly to sentencing," she said. "Given your record of service, I am inclined toward leniency." There was a murmur from the gallery, but the judge added sharply, "This courtroom requires respect. Before I pass sentence, you will stand unaided, as any able-bodied citizen would, and face this court properly." The words fell into the room like stones. Michael stood frozen for a moment, his hand tightening around the grip of his crutch. His damaged leg trembled visibly. His doctors had warned him, standing unsupported could cause permanent harm. He might collapse. He might never walk again if he pushed too hard. He looked at Judge Bell, who stared down at him with thin-lipped expectation. "You will stand," she repeated coldly, "or you will be held in further contempt." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Even Trent Holloway shifted uncomfortably, the smirk slipping from his face. Michael Turner tightened his jaw, and slowly, painfully, he set his crutches aside. Every eye in the courtroom locked on him. Every breath held. The rain battered the windows harder, as if the very heavens outside rebelled against the cruelty unfolding inside. And then Michael tried to stand. The second Michael released his crutches, the entire courtroom seemed to stop breathing. His right leg, though weaker than it had been in his prime, bore his weight with effort. His left leg, the one that had been torn apart by shrapnel years ago, shook violently beneath him. The braces squeaked faintly, metal grinding under the strain. For a fleeting moment, it looked like he might succeed. His body swayed precariously, his arms stiff at his sides. He clenched his teeth, every muscle screaming under the burden, every nerve ending in his scarred leg lit up with pain. Judge Bell tapped her pen against her clipboard, indifferent. "This court expects full compliance," she said sharply, her voice echoing in the silent room. Michael's face twisted, not in anger, not in defiance, but in sheer raw endurance. His jaw locked, his knuckles whitened. He tried again, shifting his weight, straightening his back. For 3 terrible seconds he stood, trembling, swaying, a monument of agony, refusing to fall. But then the injured knee buckled violently inward. There was a collective gasp from the gallery. Chairs scraped. Hands flew to mouths. Michael collapsed. His body crashed onto the hard, cold floor with a sickening hollow sound. The impact rattled the wooden benches. His head struck the tile with a dull thud. The crutches clattered loudly across the floor, spinning away from him. A woman in the audience cried out. A veteran in the back row half rose from his seat, fists clenched at his sides. Even Trent Holloway, the city attorney, winced visibly. But the most haunting thing of all was Michael himself, because even sprawled on the floor, gasping in pain, he tried to push himself up again. His arm shook violently. His leg twisted uselessly beneath him. And still he fought to rise. Not for pity, not for show, because he was a soldier. And soldiers rise. Judge Bell sat motionless on the bench. A flicker of something unease, guilt flashing across her features before she buried it beneath the cold armor of authority. "Bailiff," she said, her voice tight, "assist the defendant." The bailiff, an older man with silver hair and sad eyes, moved quickly, kneeling beside Michael. "Easy, Sergeant," he whispered. "Easy now." Michael's chest heaved. He shook his head stubbornly, trying to push the helping hand away. He wanted to stand. He needed to stand, but his body simply couldn't obey. The courtroom doors opened suddenly, and a young woman rushed in. Natalie Turner, Michael's younger sister. She wore scrubs from the local hospital, her ID badge still pinned crookedly to her shirt. Tears streamed down her face as she pushed past the spectators. "Michael," she cried, falling to her knees beside him. "Don't move. Don't try to move. It's okay. It's okay." The bailiff shot Judge Bell a grim look. Bell cleared her throat, adjusted her robe, and said nothing. The spectators sat frozen, watching, witnessing as Natalie cradled her brother's battered body in her arms, whispering words of comfort, of pride, of fierce, unbreakable love. Michael's hand closed weakly around hers, his fingers trembling. "I'm sorry," he rasped, barely audible. "I tried." Natalie shook her head fiercely, her tears falling onto his jacket. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing." And at that moment, the room saw it. Not a defendant, not a man accused of contempt, but a hero, broken but unbowed, still trying to rise even as the world tried to crush him. Judge Bell shifted again, unease bleeding into her stern features. For the first time, she seemed small. For the first time, the weight of her robe didn't make her bigger than the man on the floor. Because in every heart in that courtroom, the truth had already been rendered. And it wasn't Judge Bell who stood tallest that day. It was the man who had fallen trying.